Hello, Forever Family. Welcome to CR at the Grove. Not exactly, but we're going to talk tonight about some of the concepts of recovery and the steps that we can take to make progress from where we sometimes find ourselves to where we want to be. Okay, we'll put it that way. And step number one is to get real. And that really is what it amounts to, is to stop long enough in your downward spiral to recognize that you're powerless over your addiction and or compulsive behaviors. And that's the first step. We admit it. We admitted that we were powerless over our addictions and compulsive behaviors and that our lives had become unmanageable. Well, there's a verse of scripture that goes with that out of Romans chapter 8. And it says, I know that nothing good lives in me, that is, in my sinful nature, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Paul describes the life of someone who wants to do good and be good, but can't, and learns that there is kind of a lostness about that. But at the same time, there is hope in the fact that Jesus is the answer for that hopelessness. He is the hope. And He wants us to find our way out through Him. So the second step is that we came to believe in Him. We came to believe in a power greater than ourselves, and that power could restore us to sanity. Sanity? You're suggesting that I'm insane? Well, I'm suggesting no sound but hello. Okay. Well, I hope you can hear. We're, let me just, no sound. Well, that was, okay. Now we should have sound. Can anybody confirm that we have sound? Hello, hello, hello. Can we someone confirm that we have sound? No sound but hello. Well, I have sound. Just click the thingy to hear it. Oh, okay, so that may be a user error on the other end. We'll call it that. And now I've just lost my notes. Well, that's interesting. Here we go. Point number 2 is that we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And we, in recovery, we all acknowledge our higher power. And in our circles, in our recovery programs, that higher power has a name, and His name is Jesus. And the step that just makes all the difference in the world are 2 and 3. And the number 2 is that we came to believe that the power, the higher power, the greater power than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And then the verse that supports that is Philippians 2:13, that says, For it is God who works in you to will and to act according to His good purpose. And it is Him in us. And you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. I'm not a good person, and you're not either. There's not anybody good on this planet. There's not but one good, and that is God Himself. And thank you for letting us know that you're watching. That's an encouragement to me. Thank you so much. If you check in, that would be awesome. For it is God who works in you. It's God that does all of this. If there's ever a person that's going to heaven, it's because God had this thought about us. And that's the greatness of salvation. It's not that salvation saves us from hell or wickedness, but that God had this love toward us, this thought toward us, that is just absolutely incredible to imagine. That He loves us, that He wants to spend time with us, and He wants us to spend eternity with Him. It's an incredible dynamic. So, first, we admitted we were powerless. Second, we came to believe. The third thing is that we made a decision to turn our lives and our wills over to the care of God. So, that decision, many of us have experienced, is when we decided that we were out of control and we were not making the progress we wanted to make, and that we were headed nowhere fast. So, we made a decision to turn our lives and our wills over to the care of God in the person of Jesus Christ and what He did for us on the cross. And that's the turning point from going in the wrong direction to the point where we stop, turn around, and go the other way. We made that decision, and it was a once-in-a-lifetime decision. Once and for all, we made a decision to trust Jesus. And the verse that supports that is Romans chapter 12, verse 1, where it says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship." He urges us, turn our lives. And then verse 2 there says, let's renew our minds. And we do that through the work that God does in our lives. Number 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. In our process, we dig deep and we look at those events of our lives, both good and bad, that shaped us. And the people who were a part of our lives, some good, and some influences good, some influences bad. And we decided that we were going to deal with the source of our bad behavior. And we were going to deal with our hurts, our habits, our hang-ups, and we were going to get it all up and get it out and get it down on paper. And we're going to look at the facts of our lives, regardless of how brutal it is. We wanted to get it all out on paper and be able to look at it, do an inventory, and identify the sore spots, identify the malignant cancers in our lives that have been a part of our relationships. So we made a searching and fearless moral inventory. Fearless? Well, the thing that happens is once we begin to look at these things, that bugaboo is not nearly as big and bad and ugly as we thought it might be. And the idea is that we are only as sick as our secret. So we begin to get this dealt with. And the verse that supports that one is out of Lamentations 3, verse 40, that says, "Let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord." So we are not ignoring. We're not ignoring any longer the hurts that we've experienced, the pain that's been inflicted on us, whatever the damage that was done to us by someone else, or the guilt that we feel for the damage we've done to others. Let's get it all out and get it in the open so that we can begin to heal. All right. Then the fifth step is we admitted to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Oh, wait a minute. Now, it's one thing for me to dig up my junk and get it down on paper, but you're saying that I need to admit to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our junk. And that's exactly right. This is a part of the prescription that the great physician has written so that we can come out of this sickness, this sin, this perpetual mess that we've been in for most of our lives, and get free of it. The prescription is stated in James chapter 5, verse 16, where it says, "Therefore confess your sins one to another, pray for one another, so that you may be healed." This has nothing to do with forgiveness by God. This is so that we can get free of the junk, free of that hurt, that habit, that hang-up that has so disturbed us for so long. The thing that we've thought we were the only ones that have suffered like this. And as we go through our recovery process with other people, in community with other people, we learn that we're not alone, that most of what's happened to us has happened to multitudes of other people. We just didn't know it. Then the sixth step, so we dig up our junk, we get it out on paper, and we review it with one person. This is not to be broadcast to the world. This is for one person. This is for our own healing. And now you might share parts of it later voluntarily in a community setting, but at this point we're just seeking healing, and this is the way we do it. We confess it to God, to ourselves, and to someone we trust. Then number 6 says we were entirely ready to have God remove all of these defects in character. This is a big step, and this is where a lot of people get hung up, because they kind of like their secret sin. They kind of like their life that they've had, parts of it. They're not willing to give it up to God. So getting entirely ready to have God remove all these defects in character is a big step. I remember being challenged by a preacher from the pulpit, some 10, 15 years ago, who said and challenged the congregation and asked the question, is there anything in your life that you're not willing to let God take away? Any sin in your life that you're not willing to let God take away? And at the moment that I was sitting there, I was startled to realize that I was not ready. So this is the process where we get to the place where we can be ready to let God take these defects in character. So this is just getting ready to understand that we're at the place where we're ready to let God do this. So the verse for that is James 4:10, where it says, "Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will lift you up." So we got ready. Step 7 says we ask Him to remove our shortcomings. And I don't know that we can ask God to remove something that we're not ready to release. There's that war that goes on there. And it's a struggle, and it is real, and it is ongoing, and some people have been experiencing this for their whole lives. So you get ready, you identify the junk, then we get ready, and then step 7 says that we ask God to do it, to remove that junk, to remove the character defects, to remove that hurt, that habit, that hang-up that so destroys us from within. And a part of that inventory evaluation that we did earlier, getting that stuff up, getting it out, getting it down on paper, reviewing it with one person, there was a step I left out of there, not a step, but a part of the process is if we identify anybody that we need to forgive, we do it. We forgive. And that deals with that poison that's been within us of resentment and bitterness. And you know some little old men, little old ladies that are just bitter because they've never dealt with the wounds, some from childhood and others from bad relationships, others from parents that were the ones that were supposed to take care of them but betrayed them instead. So we deal with those things and we forgive others. We try to make amends for those to those that we've hurt. That's step 8. So in step 8, we made a list of persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And that means we're going to forgive them and we're going to ask for forgiveness. Luke 6:31 says, do unto others as you would have them do to you. Then number 9, we made direct amends. We made the list of what we needed to do. Then number 9, we did it. We made those direct amends, not indirect amends, direct amends to such persons whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. That verse, Matthew 5:23, is therefore if you're making your offering at the altar, offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been trying to worship God and this thought comes into your mind? Jim, get thee behind me, Satan. Jim. Oh, it comes again, Jim. And who's Jim? Jim was the business partner that took your business away from you. Your partnership, your portion of the partnership, took it right away, and you've held some resentments against Jim because of that since then. Well, when that happens, when God drops that stuff in your bucket, it's not time to say, get thee behind me, Satan. It's time to say, okay, God, I get it. I'm supposed to make amends with Jim and ask him to forgive me for that resentment that I've held against him all these years. And no, it may be that they don't deserve it. That's not the point. It's not the point whether they deserve it or whether they ask for it or whether they desire it. That has nothing to do with it. We have to do that for our own spiritual health and well-being, to move on in life and not stay stuck. And that's one of the things that happens with so many Christians in their walk with God, is that when the Holy Spirit speaks something to them about their Jim or their Joey or Susie or whoever, they, oh gosh, I don't want to think about that, is our response, rather than, Lord, are you trying to tell me something? Is there something I need to do here? Which should be our attitude, rather than, I don't want to deal with that, and I will never forgive them, are words that should never come out of our mouths, because in the Lord's Prayer, when Jesus was teaching his disciples how to pray, he said there was one particular point there in the Lord's Prayer that he felt was important to go back and comment on, and that was that if you forgive others, the Lord will forgive you, he said. But if you don't forgive others, the Father will not forgive you. Do we need to be forgiven on an ongoing basis? You betcha we do. We really, really do. Now, this has nothing to do with whether we go to heaven or not, but it certainly does matter as far as our moving forward in our Christian walk and whether we're going to make progress or not. We have to be sensitive to the Spirit, always responding when He speaks. So number 9, we made direct amends to such people whenever possible. We made the list of who we needed to see and deal with, then we went and did it. And then number 10 says that we continue to take this inventory on a daily basis. One of the things that we need to do every night before we go to bed is to think, is there anybody that we need to forgive today? Is there anybody that has harmed us that we need to release that? Or is there anyone who we need to encourage? Is there anything that we've done that we need to make right? So all of those things, any attitude toward another person that was not kind, that needs to be dealt with, and we need to seek forgiveness for. So we continue to take that personal inventory, and when we were wrong, we promptly admit it. Husbands, I had a great mentor when I was at Macklin Baptist Church, and he's gone on to his reward now, but he was my Sunday school teacher, and this was, maybe 1985, 86, somewhere along in there. And one of the first Sundays we were in his Sunday school class, he told us, he says, "Now men," it was a young married class. We were young one time. It was the young married class, and he said, "Men, you do know it's your responsibility to say you're sorry first when you and your spouse when you and your wife have a disagreement." And I thought to myself, that's odd, and that doesn't feel right for me. Oh, and that was pride speaking. But now it's almost become the joke, because when anything goes wrong around our place, I say, well, hey, it's my fault. Let's move on. And I know I don't want to be trite about that, but I do want to focus on when I am wrong. I'm not so quick to admit it, not always, but I try to be. And that's the point that we need to consider. We need to be quick to forgive, quick to admit when we're wrong. So when we're wrong, promptly admit it. And the verse there, so if you think you're standing firm, be careful that you don't fall, 1 Corinthians 10:12. The 11th step is that we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and power to carry that out. So conscious contact with God, that's setting a time aside every day to spend some time with Him, looking forward to spending time with Him, and just considering the miracle that the God of the universe wants to spend time with us. How exciting is that? And the verse that goes along with that is, let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, Colossians 3:16. And we're pulling into the station now with step number 12, which says, having had a spiritual experience as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. So we've had a spiritual experience in growth or coming to know Jesus as we've come through these steps. And Jesus' model was a small group model. And in our small groups, in our recovery programs, we have a bonding that takes place, and there's a mentor-mentee relationship that develops so that we can train others to then replicate this ministry of healing for other people. So we try to carry this good news to others, and we try to practice this in our own lives. The best messenger for a walk with Christ is someone who's actually living it. And there's something beautiful, something attractive, something desirable about someone who is living for Christ, and we need to be about the business of showing Christ wherever we go, always. Now, the verse that goes with that one is Galatians 6:1, where it says, "Brothers, if someone is caught in a sin, you who are spiritual should restore them gently, but watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted." All right, so we've stepped our way through, and each of these precepts are built on the one before. We got to get our foundation right. We got to start. We got to admit that there's a problem when there is, and then work our way through the process of finding our healing from hurts, habits, and hang-ups. So I hope you'll take this to heart. If you wanted to go back and review these steps again, all you have to do is just Google the CR 12 steps, and you can find it. Also, I'll be posting this on YouTube if you want to watch it later. Hope you do, and thanks for being with us tonight. Good night, and God bless.